Hey everybody, hope everybody is well today. Got a very important message from the Valley that I want to share with you because it's tied to the no buy, no sell system, the mark and the seal, and Sabbath and worship. And as we have learned that the mark is going to be based on who keeps Sabbath, the day of rest you choose and who you obey when they tell you to rest is how the Most High is going to determine who's sealed with His instruction and who's sealed by the world of the beast's instruction. And I read this story last night. It was pretty blatant to see what's happening. We're getting ready to transition into this new system, and they have to lay the foundation for why we got to rest and which day we're going to have to rest on. Now, I did a couple lessons already, a couple with Watchman Nehemiah and a couple just on my own where I've shared, you know, how important keeping the Sabbath is. Knowing when the Sabbath is, keeping the Sabbath, having it in your heart, having to know or learning when to observe it properly, no matter what nobody else is doing, no matter what no church is doing, no matter what, other groups are doing, you got to do it right. You got to learn how to do it. You have the resources because there are resources all over the internet. There are Israel, Yasharel, um, watchmen who are teaching when we're supposed to keep Sabbath on the right day. And there are a lot of people who are not right. And that's going to be a problem, especially in this awakening. Now, I've given people resources about Sabbath. You can go through and on my YouTube channel and look up some of the resources uh, about Sabbath and the mark in Sabbath. And in the descriptions, there are resources for you to learn how to properly keep the Sabbath, as well as links to videos of teachers that I watch and follow and trust who have given good guidance and wisdom on keeping the Sabbath based on the moon. Keeping the Sabbath every Friday sundown to Saturday sundown is not necessarily the proper way. Most of the Sabbaths will fall on the on the seventh day, rest on the seventh day. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they fall on different days. It's very hard to keep Sabbath in Babylon because of the way that they have us working and the way that they have the Gregorian calendar set. I'm not going to get into all of that in this video. If you want to know about that, I will include a couple of different videos at the end of this video, as well as resources on Sabbath in the description. It is very important that you understand the importance of keeping Sabbath because you are going to be forced to rest on the day when this system says you have to rest, or you're not going to be able to buy or sell. They, the Pope, the powers that be are laying the foundation for work and rest. And I'm going to read this story to you, and hopefully you'll get what I'm trying to convey and the importance of this particular story. But it's important because it's demonstrating how aggressive they're getting, how vocal the Pope is getting, speaking on these different topics, and it also lets you know where we are spiritually in the big scheme of things when it comes to time. Time is running out for the adversary. Time is running out for Jacob. Jacob got to get his life together. Israelites got to get their lives together. We have to awaken and we have to obey the law, statutes, and commandments. You know, it's just that simple. And Sabbath is going to be the way that the Most High determines who is his and who belongs to the beast, who belongs to the adversary. So we have to really take this seriously, listen to what this man is saying, and then I'm going to pull up some scripture to um, to show how important when we rest is important and why we should not rest when the beast tells us to rest. Okay, so the story came out on yesterday, July 22nd, 2024. It says the Pope warns against falling victim to hectic dictatorship of doing. And he they use the term doing here, but they're really talking about work and rest. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I get into this story. So as you can see, this story came from the Vatican City, July 22nd, 2024. That was yesterday. So it says, in order to be compassionate and respond best to the needs of others, it is necessary to take time out to relax and not to be anxious about getting things done, Pope Francis said. So notice he said it is important to take time out to relax. Replace relax with rest and not be anxious about getting things done. We're not supposed to be anxious about anything. That's what the Most High told us. But we are supposed to work and we're supposed to rest when he tells us to rest, not when this man tells us to rest. So that is the first takeaway. Pay attention to what they're saying, pay attention to the tone he's using, pay attention to the fact that he's gently ushering the sheep into when it's time to sleep or slumber or rest and when it's in learn. And then he don't even talk about learning, just rest and when you should do work. So it says it is a social injustice when working parents hardly see their children because of long hours away from home, he said, before praying the Angelus in St. Peter's Square, July 21st. So he calls working and hardly seeing your children a social injustice. Pay attention to how he's framing work and the fact that you don't have time for your children. So they're getting ready to control. That's a call for control. Quote, in families, fathers and mothers should have time to share with their children to let love grow within their family and in order to not fall into the dictatorship of doing. So they go from talking about working to the dictatorship of doing. So they're calling the modern work culture, which is basically modern slavery, a dictatorship of doing. And then they're redirecting it back to children. So see how they drag the children into the chat? Children don't have nothing to do with working and resting, but they're gonna make it all seem like, oh well, you need to stay home so you can love on your children and rest this day because this is a family day. They're framing it. They're trying to figure out they got to have multiple things to throw at us because people are not really buying into this whole climate thing. People figuring stuff out and we're talking. So that ain't going to work for them. And the companies are bucking it because they don't want to be seen as the bad guy because guess what? People know how to look up who these people are and they're going to be coming for them. So people are not going to go into a lot of these take these paths to unrighteousness. So let's just frame it in that reference point. They're not going to take these pathways to their unrighteousness or just unrighteousness in general. Um, so they got to create a lot of different diversions to get people to sin. And so this is a perfect way, just how it's framed in this paragraph about working and hardly seeing your children and being long away from them for long hours. You need time to be at home and rest and share and let love grow within the family. That sounds real good. Except for they're going to tell you when to do it, and it's not going to be when the Most High told us to do it. So we're going to be in trouble. So you got to get that. So it says the Pope reflected on the day's gospel reading from St. Mark 6:30 through 34 about Jesus telling the apostles to rest after their return from their mission of preaching and healing. However, when Jesus saw the vast crowd that had gathered, his heart was moved with pity for them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things, the verse says. Now I find it interesting that he uses this because he's going to consider himself his him being the shepherd, and the world people are his sheep. And so he's acting, in my opinion, he's um, using these particular scriptures to position himself as some type of God, which he loves to do. Also, I find it very interesting that he uses this scripture about Jesus feeding the poor. If they're getting ready to make the world poor and we're going to be hungry because they're going to control everything, and we're not going to they're going to ration us out green strips, soil and green, and bugs, and you're not going to be able to get water. I feel like this is a coded message. And I got my tinfoil hat on, so excuse me. But I don't think this is by accident. So I pulled up Mark 6:30 through 34. And so I'll include um, this whole section so that you can read it in context, so you can kind of see all the stuff that he left out, because you better believe he left out some context. So it says the apostles gathered around Yeshua. And this is 30. So it says 30. The apostles gathered around Yeshua. They reported to him everything that had they had done and taught. 31. So he said to them, "Let's go to a place where we can be alone to rest for a while." Many people were coming and going, and Yeshua and the apostles didn't even have a chance to eat. People were they were working. They were serving people. That's what we're supposed to do. The way that he's talking about it is totally different, because the people who are going to work at Mr. Charlie's job ain't working for the people. They're working to give their check to Mr. Charlie and to pay taxes. Give Caesar what's his. So it's totally taken out of context. And the way that we work has been set up by this system so that we cannot be with our family, so that we are out of order. We all are out of sync. Well, this is not the same scenario. So it says, so they went away in a boat to a place where they could be alone. But many people saw them leave and recognized them. The people ran from all the cities and arrived ahead of them. So, see, the people was in the cities and they was leaving the cities. I just wanted to point that out. When Yeshua got out of the boat, he saw a large crowd and felt sorry for them. They were like sheep without a shepherd. So he spent a lot of time teaching them. So he leaves out, to see how the Pope leaves that out. So it says, this is 35. So I want to read a little more for context. So it says, when it was late, his disciples came to him. They said, "No one lives around here, and it's already late." 36. Send the people to the closest farms and villages to buy themselves something to eat. And 37 says, Yeshua replied, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "Should we go spend about a year's wages on bread to feed them?" And 38 says, he said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. When they found out, they told him, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. 39. Then he ordered all of them to sit down in groups on the green grass. 40. They sat down in groups, and groups of hundreds and fifties. After he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven and blessed the food. He broke the loaves apart and kept giving them to the disciples to give to the people. He also gave pieces of the 2 fish to everyone. All of them ate as much as they wanted. When they picked up the leftover pieces, they filled 12 baskets with bread and fish. There were 5,000 men who had eaten the bread. So, um, this story or about the Pope saying people should rest and work, when you look at what was going on, in Mark 6:30 through 34, it was a totally different scenario. It's a totally different situation. But here he is wanting to talk about people working too much. And, um, Jesus having pity in his heart for uh, the sheep. So, again, they always are mixing up stuff. And if you look at what they say and you go back to the scripture and you look at the context, to go precept upon precept, and I didn't even go to all the other scriptures when it talks about work. Um, there are so many scriptures tied to work and rest. It is not even funny. So if you just do a precept by precept for work and in context with rest, you'll see it'll talk about work and rest, and it's very clear. So the fact that he's talking about work here, my mind immediately went to rest, and so he's setting up the stage for presenting the world with, y'all work too much, y'all need to rest. This how we gonna do it, and it's gonna come um, when folks least expect it. So since the Pope said, on the one hand, there is an invitation to rest, and on the other, Jesus's compassion for the crowd. Resting and being compassionate may seem like two incompatible things while they actually go together. So you see how he's softening it up and dressing it up and and laying the foundation. Only if we learn how to rest can we have compassion. He's talking about rest. The day of rest is going to be your mark. So he's laying the foundation for presenting the mark to the people. Most people in the world don't even know it, especially those who have gone back under the Roman Catholic Church through this ecumenical movement. So it says, indeed, it is only possible to have a compassionate gaze which knows how to respond to the needs of others if our heart is not consumed by anxiety of doing work. If we know how to stop and how to receive the grace of God in the silence of adoration, he said, nothing, don't know what none of that means. There is a danger that can threaten us when, for instance, our enthusiasm in carrying out our mission or our work, as well as the roles and tasks entrusted to us, make us fall victim to a kind of activism which is overly concerned with things to do and with results. And this is a bad thing, he said. So now he's saying work is bad. God said work is good. A man who don't work don't eat. So you got to work. But you got to work when the Most High said work. And you must rest when the Most High said rest. And you must keep that Sabbath when he told you to keep that Sabbath. But see, Buddy Roy ain't talking about that. It then happens that we become agitated and lose sight of what is essential. We risk exhausting our energies and falling into bodily and spiritual fatigue, the Pope said. You're right, but y'all created this system that we live in that's doing all this stuff. A person's life, society in general, and even the church in its pastoral work may be may often be held prisoner by haste, he said. Brothers and sisters, let us be aware of the dictatorship of doing. This can also happen out of necessity in families, he added, when one or both parents have to earn a living and sacrifice time that could have been spent with family, for example, having to leave before the kids awake and getting home after they are asleep. This is a social injustice, he said. Let us think about what we can do to help people who are forced to live in this way. They are going to think about what they can do, honey, for us. Whatever they tell you to do, you better not do it. I'm just here to say. Francis encouraged Catholics. Well, now every whole world is Catholic because everybody in the ecumenical movement is gone back under the Catholic Church. So people who call themselves Christians don't realize that they are actually Catholics now. But anywho, am I able to stop during my day? Am I capable of taking a moment to be with myself and with the Lord, or am I always in a hurry and in a constant hurry for things to do? He asked the faithful to find an inner place of rest. So you got to go inside yourself and find rest. We ain't supposed to find rest in ourselves. We supposed to find rest in the Most High, in His Son, the Messiah. So everything that He tells us to do is the opposite of what the Most High wants us to do. He don't want us to find a place in ourselves because we evil. Our hearts are filthy. Our minds are corrupt. But he says, go inside yourself for a place of rest, even in the midst of a busy day, and to be compassionate towards others. Well, if you're not being renewed by the Most High, getting out of yourself and getting into Him, how in the world you going to be compassionate to others? Because we evil. I can speak for myself. I am petty as hell sometimes. I'm just keeping them up. Sometimes, and the only reason I'm not petty, I don't act on my petty, is because the Most High corrects me. He circumcises my heart and says, "Hey, girl, you know that ain't right. That's not how my children's supposed to be living." I'm convicted. I repent for thinking the way that I think, and I keep it pushing. But before I knew him, I'm gonna tell you, I was petty. I was petty, petty, baby. I was tit for tat all day and twice on Sunday. I could get down with it. The dozens cuss you out. I could get in there with you. I could give it to you. But I'm not that person no more because I'm renewed. I have a renewed mind. I most times have a circumcised heart, but I know that I can't do anything myself because I'm evil and wicked. I'm human. I live in this dirty, filthy world who teaches me things that are not of the Most High. So I can't go inside myself because myself is dirty. So He's telling you to do something that is contrary to what the Most High tells us to do. We're not supposed to lean on our own understanding. So, in any event, I want to share this with y'all because you can see the language is gently being twisted. You're getting your social justice stuff mixed in with the children and your coded common good language. They're talking about work and rest, laying the foundation for whenever they roll out this stuff. And the other thing is we're all overworked. Everybody is working, working, working. You got to work. Everybody's complaining about having to work too much to live, to pay to live. People are working 2 and 3 jobs just to buy groceries, pay rent. And if you have children, you're not able to spend quality time with your family. You can barely get any rest because you're just working to pay debt. We're debt slaves. And so they're using these messages, even though they've created this system, they're using these messages to act like they're going to help us. So they created the problem, and now he's getting ready to introduce the solution to you, which is going to be keeping the wrong Sabbath or having a day of rest that ain't y'all's day of rest. So we got to be careful. We got to pay attention to this language that the popes are using. We got to pay attention to these types of articles because they're saying something without saying something. And to me, they're telegraphing what's to come. So we know that they're plotting a day of rest that's contrary to the Most High's day of rest. And this is why it's very important for you to learn about keeping the Sabbath, learning how to go outside and read that moon, listening to the watchmen who keep the lunar Sabbath. Um, because we want to make sure that we are sealed and not marked, because that is what is going to determine who's living righteously and who's being obedient, who's keeping those law, statutes, and commandments, and who is not. Or we're trying anyway. You ain't gonna always get it right, um, but we have to try. And knowing what's wrong and keeping what's right is half the battle. And a lot of these um, Israelite groups and communities, they don't keep the proper Sabbath. And they're not really talking about that time. As we enter into Jacob's trouble, we need to know the signs. Because we're not gonna have watches. Your phone ain't gonna work. Your TV ain't gonna work. We're not gonna be able to communicate with each other. So while you have time to get knowledge and wisdom and understanding about it, buy these hard copy books that teach us about how to do it, and listening to teachers and getting the signs and practicing going outside and looking up in the sky and seeing the moon change. This is the time to do it, because the time is winding down where we won't be able to communicate the way that we communicate now. I'm not going to be able to talk about this type of stuff soon. We don't know when we're going to get snatched up and persecuted, because we're trying to awaken the masses, and we're not going to be able to um, buy stuff that can teach us. The days of being able to buy and sell are coming to an end freely, are coming to an end. So, in any event, the man is talking. He's talking a lot, and they got him old and frail looking. But the Joker is speaking like the adversary. Slick as all outdoors. And so we really got to pay attention to this language that they're using. We got to pay attention to what they're doing in the way of dismantling this system, so that they have control over every aspect of our lives. So they'll be able to determine when somebody is not resting when they tell them to rest, because your cell phone gonna tell on you, your smart devices in your house gonna tell on you, the cameras on the street and all the stuff that's connected to the internet of things will tell on you, your employer, you clocking in and clocking out digitally, it's gonna tell on you. So we're coming to a time where everybody's going to have to make a decision. And so you need to be prepared to live with the consequences of those decisions, whether it's physically here on this earth or whether it's spiritually in the next kingdom, whenever this whole wicked world ends. It's time to make decisions. It's time to learn. It's time to draw that line in the sand and figure out what side of history you're going to be on. You're going to take a stand. You're going to learn and be obedient, or you're going to go along with the crowd and get get what the crowd is getting when judgment comes. They know their time is winding down. They've told us that they are accelerating their plans and their agendas, and we need to take heed. So do not be deceived by no man. And that means we got to be watching a whole lot of stuff. Um, and we definitely got to be coming out of these churches. So if you are in a Christian church, you better be trying to get out of them, because all these churches, all these different denominations, it doesn't matter if they're black or white, they're all taking their leadership from this guy. And this whole worldwide ecumenical movement, all these major religions have gone back under this person. So whenever he says this what we gonna do, they gonna do it too. and they're already doing it and wrong. So they're not going to see anything wrong with what he says. Resting on Sunday, blue laws, all the stores closed, can't do nothing. But so there's going to be a time that comes where you're going to be persecuted for keeping Sabbath. But because so many people don't actually know how to properly keep Sabbath, you may be able to escape under the radar. But those are things that you got to work out between you and the Most High, and how you do it in your community, where you live, your household. Everybody got to work out their own salvation, and everybody got to walk out their own salvation. But I'm just the messenger, letting you know the hour is coming where we're going to have to decide whether we are marked or sealed, and you better be able to go back to your word and compare it to what these people say, because they are misleading us all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. And they don't have any issue with it whatsoever, because that is their job in this hour. So it's your job to get knowledge and wisdom so that you can live righteously. We trying to live righteously. We're trying to be counted. We're trying to be the elect. We're trying to be um, chosen ones, those special people. We know everybody ain't gonna make it, but we have to do what we gotta do to try to study and show ourselves approved as much as possible. And that's the only reason that I'm talking about this. I hate to be all over the place telling y'all stuff, but it's so much stuff that we have to keep watch of, that it's an important topic. So with that said, I'm going to end this video. Please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification so that you be notified each and every time I upload new content. I will try to link all the videos that I've done, well, a couple of the videos that I've done on Sabbath. And I will also include links in the description about going outside and looking at that moon, so you can keep up when Sabbath is, because Sabbath is not every Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. It's not always that schedule. Sometimes the moon is doing a thing. So you got to learn about lunar Sabbath. It's totally different from what we have been taught, and so it takes some time to get it in your spirit. But the most important thing is that you're convicted of it and that you try to observe it, because a lot of uh, denominations, or a lot of Israelite teachers who are really good teachers, don't keep the proper Sabbath. And that's very problematic for our people, because it's one thing to not be able to keep it because Pharaoh won't let you keep it, but because you have information and you refuse to consume it, or you refuse to learn, that's a problem. That's a heart problem. That's a mind problem. That's disobedience. And so we have to acknowledge it and call it what it is, and repent and try to do right. That's all we can do. But to say, I know I ain't gonna believe it, I ain't gonna do it, or whatever, it's in the word. It tells you, this how you're supposed to keep it. And as well as uh the only reason it's changed because of these people. So we have to understand history and get back to our ways, our laws, our statutes, our commandments, our culture, our ways of doing, because those things will protect us. We doing anything outside of that, we got a problem. And the Most High will see. We are not His, so He not going to have no mercy on us. It's that time. So y'all get it right. We don't have much longer. They're getting ready to take the internet down. So once they do that, it's gonna be a wrap. They instituting that Internet of Things, that new system, and so the new buy new sales system will be online, and it's gonna be problems for us going forward. All right, this is Marla K. Love y'all, and I'm out.